Welcome to my living room. I call this pandemic casual, the outfit I'm wearing. You guys complain quite often in the comments that the video I have of me giving this lecture on dog domestication cuts off at 30 minutes. Well, I'm going to inform you. I also complained to myself about that, so I'm going to give the lecture here because I don't really feel like editing the next video today on this Labor Day weekend, and we're going to watch the whole thing here again in my living room. And if you're new to this channel or you're just finding this video on the internet, someone sent it to you being like, hey, this guy talks about how dogs came about. Welcome. All right? Cool. Let's have a good time. If you're not used to my stuff yet, I'm going to just disclaimer, I'm an anthropologist. I'm not a dog trainer. I'm not a vet. I'm not a dog scientist. I'm an anthropologist that likes to study all that. So, anthropology, the study of the human species, and that is cultural anthropology, like human culture, human systems, religions, behavior. Linguistic anthropology, which is, signs, symbols, and the way people speak to each other, and the hidden, not hidden, but like, the underlying tones and messages behind that. Physical anthropology, which, should be biological now. I'm probably canceled for just having this slide up. Biological is what it's called now. Always has been physical or biological, and that is human evolution, primatology, forensics, human osteology, paleoanthropology, all that good stuff. What you probably know anthropology as. And then archaeological anthropology is human behavior through time. You're studying the artifacts and the material remains they left behind and their material culture to infer what their lives were like archaeologically in the past. So, good stuff. We're going to focus more on archaeological today. Now, anthropology and dogs. Why does this matter? Well, all dogs living today are the genetic descendants of a gray wolf species. Not the gray wolf, A. We're not sure if it's the current one or they split off from an evolutionary branch a while back, but I think they split off, like modern wolves and dogs split off from an ancient wolf. Either way, dogs are in the wolf family. Genetically, they are the same species as the current gray wolf. They can all interbreed with coyotes and jackals as well. So they're all wolves. Canis lupus is the gray wolf, so dog wolf in Latin. The domestic dog is Canis lupus familiaris, so the friendly wolf or the nice wolf, or the family wolf, whichever one you want to go with. And it might seem hard to believe, because how is this dog and that dog the same thing? Well, they are. So I'm going to talk about this today, all of it. So we're going to talk about, 1, wolves and wolf ecology and context. We're talking about dog domestication theories. And then the human and dog story, and I'll put that all together. Hope you guys can see me. Hope you can see the screen. I'm not going to redo this, so let's go. Also, if you want to see a video version of this where I'm not just yelling at you, you can check out my video here called Wolf Ecology, and that's part 1. Part 2 is on Stefan Milo's channel, the man, the bloke, all right? Check it out. So, if we descended from wolves, then why the hell is there still wolves? Well, let's get to that. Gray wolves, evolutionary history, right? So, canids first appear in the Eocene, which is 56 to 33 million years ago. That is, a little after the dinosaurs died out because mammals had just been starting around then. But now we have this canid-like creature appearing then. The genus Canis doesn't come about to the Pliocene, about 5 to 2 million years ago. Now, Homo and Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we are, only appear in the Pleistocene, which is 2 million years ago, and 2 million years ago to 10,000 years ago. So we're relatively new. Let's see. Pleistocene is way up top in the Quaternary, and then the Tertiary is the Eocene and the Pliocene. So we're new. Canids mostly evolved in the North American plains, ancient canids. However, recent study has found out that gray wolves actually might have evolved in Asia. This is this has to do with the how'd you call it? The recent study that came out with the direwolf genetics, right? So direwolves evolved in North America. Gray wolves didn't, or else they would have had a lot more competition in genetics. Well, that's a whole other video. I'm working on that one. Gray wolves are not from the Americas, technically, according to this study. That could be wrong. I don't know, but just go with that for now. Guess what? They like to live in the cold in the north. Let's say that. So, wolves, Canis lupus. They consist of over 38 subspecies alone. And that can be gray wolves, red wolves, timber wolves, big bad wolves, and, going backwards, zip zop. Wolves are the largest of the living canids, right? And the direwolf, which used to be in the genus Canis, according to that study, is now Anocyon is its genus, Anocyon deerus. which it's genetically not a wolf. It's more related to the ancient bone-crushing dogs, which I would say bone-crushing canids because it's very confusing. African wild dogs, they're not dogs. Stop calling things dogs when they're not dogs. All right, guys? Be great. Be way less confusing for me to teach this stuff. And modern wolves have an average weight of 60 to 175 pounds, so they're pretty large. Distinct from other canids by their cranial, dental, and behavioral traits. Gray wolves, ecology and behavior. Wolves, as you probably know, live in complex social groups called packs. Now, I have that bolded. I want you to remember that. Packs usually consist of 2 to 4 families of wolves, and this basic family unit consists of 1 male, 1 female, and their various offspring, and wolves are monogamous for the most part. It's captivity makes weird things happen, but for the most part, wolves are a monogamous species, meaning that they stay together to raise the young. They can switch partners later on if the other one dies, but they mostly stay together. And the average pack size is usually about 5 to 10 wolves, but in times of severe environmental pressure, that's been up to 40 wolves at once. I believe that was in Yellowstone, or somewhere up there, Glacier, one of those big parks. Alpha males only appear in captivity. There's not really an alpha male thing in the wild. Someone might say I'm wrong with that. All the science I've seen points to this being true. There's no wolves that are alphas. That's just it's a human concept. But there are outcasts, and there are lone wolves, and that's something that will come up later, so pay attention to that. It looks like I cited myself in here, which is just a stupid thing to do. But, I mean, I have to. Remember, complex social groups and outcasts. Now, gray wolves are a top predator, and like humans, they are ruthlessly efficient pack hunters, and it can be argued that bears and felines, are the top predators, but cats usually like to hunt at night, they hunt alone, and bears like to forage, and they do their own thing. And they can't compete with wolves. Wolves are just the ultimate predator. And I mean, orcas are pretty freaking cool, but like those are called the wolves of the sea. So, my point stands. What makes the wolf so deadly, in addition to its intelligence, is its teeth, its strength, and its stamina. These things are built. They're units, dude. So they keep chasing, wolves chase down animals as a pack. They keep chasing until the animal becomes exhausted. This is called persistence hunting, and this is why wolves have historically been a symbol of fear. They can chase the shit out of us. And this is why we sweat. Humans could run and run and run and run. We don't have to stop to pant. We sweat. All the extra heat comes out of our body, and we can maintain thermostasis. Homeostasis, right? Thermoregulate. That's the word. We can thermoregulate without overheating because of the sweat that comes out of us. Wolves and dogs have to stop to pant. But they can do this as a team, and like one will go after the other and go after the other and tag team it when they're hunting things. So you can see this here. This was in I think, National Geographic documentary. Those elks are screwed. Yeah, so this is why we sweat. And then the dental osteology of wolves is pretty wild, dude. So canids have a very long, strong snout full of thousands of scent receptors. It's nuts. So they have the main cavity that they breathe in through. There's also a separate pocket that goes up into their olfactory zone up in here. I forget what that's called, up in the frontal lobe. And that's where they smell things. It's pretty cool. We don't do it as well. They're huge canines, easily sink into flesh, and they can crush bone. Well, the canines can't. The carnassials do. But they can sink into skin, muscle, and veins. They can latch onto things. That's why they're like canine-shaped. They can curve, and they like attach. Wolves can exert up to 1,500 pounds of pressure per square inch in one bite, which is metal. You don't want to mess with that. It's like a Maori war dance. Don't mess with it. Here we go. The oral osteology of wolves allows them to grab prey, hold onto it, and drag them down, and crush their leg bones when they get like a good bite with the back of their teeth. And you can see here that it's a very elongated snout, and they have this big curved scimitar-like thing on the front, which hooks in, and the back they have these big carnassials, which I think I talk about here next. Awesome. Which are what crush bone in the back. They're like shears, and they're designed to crush bone. And that's why your dog likes to chew bones way back in his mouth. They don't do the front, they chew back here, just like you when you masticate with your molars. If you masticate too long, you will go blind. So, right, look familiar? And there's my dog chilling. This is why they like to chew in the back of their mouth. Also, it makes stuffed animals look way more morbid now, because that's what they're doing. For you cat people, cats are evolved to silently stalk, lunge, and pounce on their prey. And they do it very well. They also have scissor-like carnassials, so they can allow one quick bite to the throat or spine and sever it. Although they do use their canines to latch onto something too and carry it, like big cats do. And this is why your cat brings in dead animals. We actually domesticated them to keep rodents out of our granaries. And that's debated. Are cats domesticated? Are cats not domesticated? I think they are a wild animal that walked into our granaries and our villages one day and just haven't left. However, we do breed cats, right? And we have different versions of cats, and there's smaller cats, there's bigger cats, there's hairless cats. We have domesticated them. And I see this often all the time thrown around the internet. Cats domesticated us. They didn't, because there weren't cats in the entire New World, and there weren't cats in Australia until way later when they got brought there, and now they're destroying Australia, and they're destroying the North American ecosystem too. But people in the Americas totally settled down and civilized themselves and domesticated themselves without cats. So don't say that. That's bad. Here's the thing, though. We don't invent cats. Cats come in after agriculture. And we had all that excess food now that we're growing mass agriculture, and they're going to attract rats, right? Or the rotting food does. So cats come in to do that. And they eradicate pests out of our settlements. And the wildcat is interesting because this is the wild version of a cat. If you notice, a domestic cat and a wildcat look the exact same. And a wildcat is Felis sylvestris. There's also Felis sylvestris africanus and Felis sylvestris libica. I'm not sure. I don't know which one it is. I think it's debated, or like they all kind of just descend in the same kind of cats we have now. The domestic cat is Felis catus. And if you notice, they do look identical. And with dogs, a Chihuahua does not look like a gray wolf. But with cats, a cat looks like Felis sylvestris libica. Interesting. And now notice the difference between their bites. Cats have a very short, like quick bite kind of mouth. Like their morphology literally is conducive to that. Whereas the dog has this gigantic lever where they can latch onto something and drag and hook and do all that kind of stuff. It's like a stronger lever device. Whereas this is just a quick, like, and that's why cats do what they do. Now, note these traits in your dogs. Wolves are literally killing machines. It's like what they are evolved to do. And this is why dogs like to rip things apart, right? This is not my house, clearly. They need to do this. It's in their DNA. It's coded into them. And a lot of people are like, well, dogs aren't wolves. And all about that. No. So don't blame your puppy. Blame evolution. That is because you should also blame your puppy because you are able to train them not to chew on things, but don't worry about it. That precious puppy is nature's perfect killing machine. It's designed to do that. We literally designed them to do that. Only recently have we used dogs to sleep on the couch with us. Now, wolf hunting and social behaviors are exaggerated in these animals to, do different things and tasks and create different dogs. Salukis are made for running. Border collies are for hunting and stalking. Well, excuse me. Salukis were like bred from wolf running, and border collies exhibit the traits that wolves do when they're hunting and they're stalking. And huskies obviously represent wolf strength and the cold adaptation, and they have a wolf-like appearance, which is interesting. German Shepherd dogs also are bred for their obedience and intelligence. This is taken from wolves. Wolves are very intelligent, and they also have a wolf-like appearance. Interesting. Now, you can see here that this running wolf looks just like a Saluki. And it's the same animal, right? Just the same subspecies, or they're subspecies of this animal. And you can see that we evolved that wolf to run and run and run and run and run. And we bred the faster ones with the faster ones until you get the Saluki, which is a slimmed down aerodynamic missile. And it has this gigantic thoracic cavity to pump all of that oxygen through its body with a giant heart and a lot of pulmonary systems to do that. It's really cool. It's like we make robots. And then we also have wolves running here. And you can see it's the same gait, the same way they run. It's just more exaggerated than the dogs. Border collies are literally peak animal intelligence to me. Like, it's nuts when you see a border collie do its thing. Now, chimps are pretty smart. So are dolphins. So are elephants. All right. Wolves stalk. They stalk their prey, just like you see here in Yellowstone. They surround it and they stalk. Animals, especially ungulates, are used to being stalked. They don't know that that is not a wolf. They just know it's a dog. Or they just know it's a canid that is around them and they're very uncomfortable. The dogs, or the collies, do exactly what wolves do, and they just encircle the animals, and their instinct kicks in and they run away from it. And that's how collies are able to hurt animals. That comes from wolf stalking behavior. Somebody probably saw that and then noticed that their dogs did that too, and they exaggerated that over time, especially in the Neolithic. Dog domestication theories. Domestication theories. We can split this into natural selection and artificial selection. Now, let's start with natural. I got our boy Chuck D over here. Now, all biological organisms are subject to the pressures of their environment. We know that. And organisms must compete with each other in order to, now say it with me, survive, secure resources, and pass on their genetic material, also known as DNA. Now, that is biologically the point of life. You get enough resources to have enough energy to reproduce and then to raise your young to make sure your lineage goes on. That's from the first cells and the first, eukaryotic organisms going up to this and mitosis and meiosis. That's what life does. It just goes that way. Now, humans have other versions of life, we have more fulfilling cultural things in our lives, but for the most part, that's how animals work. So just think of that when we look at dogs. Okay. So generations slowly develop adaptations, which help them secure these resources and survive and pass on their DNA. And let's keep an eye on that. So the first one with domestication theories, self-domestication hypothesis, or the flight distance hypothesis. Now, this is the idea that wolves with more docile genes were less timid of humans. They sought to exploit human food resources, and this replaces cooperative hunting. Especially, you don't have to spend all that energy and calories hunting when you could just scavenge human camps. Perhaps whole populations did this. Perhaps it was just the outcasts of the pack, or those lone wolves, because they didn't have a team to help them hunt. This would have been, or they were predisposed to being more docile. They had to. They got to adapt. And some call these protodogs. And the more aggressive wolves may have stayed away from humans because they don't want anything to do with us. Or the most timid wolves would have stayed away. The ones that were able to interact with us kept on with us. This is natural selection. Now, the ones that could do their own thing stayed away from humans, likely, and they continued hunting in packs. I just said that same thing. Now, Lorna and Raymond Coppinger, who made this theory, call this flight distance. And it's not flight as in flying, it's flight as in fly you fools, like Gandalf, fleeing the scene. So this is the fight or flight instinct of wolf. Fight or flight or fight, one of them. Two of them, both of them. And this is how close they are willing to come to humans before they flee. Those who could stand to be around humans longer had a lesser flight distance. Those who couldn't stand to be around humans had a greater flight distance because they hauled ass. Now, scavenging wolves would have eventually become protodogs, the more docile that were less afraid of humans. Does this sound familiar? I believe this is a city with a dump. Don't know where. Doesn't matter. Dogs scavenge. Dogs, yeah, I'm talking to you. Every time I eat, especially if I eat cheese, as soon as I open a cheese stick wrapper, he comes busting down the hallway trying to get some of that. They are literally human parasites, and they eat around our villages and our homes. They knock over trash cans just like this, and we shame them with English text on things and put it on the internet. They like to do that. They like to scavenge food. They're smart, and they're very good at doing it. Now, let's talk about the symbiotic mutualism hypothesis. This is another natural selection theory. I'm going very fast. Now, selection for decreased aggression. I almost said entonces, but now. The idea that humans and wolves are equal in the animal kingdom. And not say equal like chimps and us, but equals in our social dynamics. Humans and wolves are both very efficient pack hunters, and they're very intelligent animals. We hunt the same type of large game, especially in the Paleolithic and Eurasia. We both loved reindeer. It was the number one combo at the drive-thru. And we also live in complex social groups. We have hierarchies, and we all interact with each other. We have to be social to survive. Wolves, too. We live in the same environments. We love temperate. We love everything. Wolves love temperate, though. May have also found wolves and killed the... Oh. Take it back to 1998. What we got? Aha. Okay, and we're back. Wolves and humans would have been competing very closely. Wolves may have caught bleeding animals that humans were tracking. These animals, like I said, we could have shot them. Usually you kill it instantly, but sometimes it does bleed for a while and you got to chase it. If wolves are about, they might beat you to it. It's not unheard of. It's probably not too common. However, wolves may have found, or humans might have found wolves more likely eating a carcass, having just killed an animal, because you're going to hear those screams. It's pretty brutal. It's not pleasant out there in the animal kingdom. Everyone's like, don't let the animals die. Don't hunt them. They also get ripped to shreds by animals. So just, Carol, it's not sunshine and daisies. I may have found a wolf and killed it to get access to this kill, to get the food. Humans are crafty. We cheat. Essentially you're throwing sand in the enemy's eyes. You're just taking its kill. Also, you're just taking its, its hard work, hard-earned stuff. Close contact would have occurred. Humans may have allowed the more docile wolves to stay, and we could have rewarded their behavior. So if, Rex doesn't attack us, you throw... His name's not Rex. It was probably, Groshkak back in the day. And you threw something to it, and you're like, he'll leave us alone. But that one over there that's a dick, you throw an atlatl into, and it dies. And then you take its pelt, and then you wear it. We killed the aggressive, or the aggressive ran away. These wolves may have learned to scavenge human camps from this notion. Been like, oh, wait, these little monkey people go all the way back to this camp that smells really good, where there's also shelter, and lots of animals also come to scavenge around there. Raccoons didn't exist in Eurasia at the time, but, little scavenging animals, jackals, things like that, and dholes. And they would have, figured this out. I'm ranting. Does this sound familiar? I don't know if this will to a lot of people, but indigenous tribes of the plains here in the Americas would actually... Somebody documented this and said that they would wear wolf pelts, crawl up to the bison, and the bison would behave the way that they would around wolves. Humans can observe this from afar because we're extremely intelligent. Okay, when wolves come around, bisons constantly act this way, 9 out of 10 times. So they exploit that, and they get up right from under them and shoot them right in the throat, or they use a spear and get them. Really, really cool. Point of this being, things like this, humans are crafty, could have happened 40,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, or 20, which we'll get to. Now, artificial selection theories. Now, artificial selection is humans selecting for certain traits. This is called controlled evolution. Darwin was fascinated by this, though he never figured it out. He loved pigeons, and he loved plants. If you've actually read The Origin of Species, which I suggest everyone should, all he does is talk about pigeons for 19 chapters, and he's like, and it gets to the last page of the book, and he's like, okay, I think these things might evolve. Just skip to the last page, but also read it. He loved pigeons and plants. He noticed that while selecting for certain traits, like longer beaks or spotted coats, or longer beaks, stronger beaks, sharper talons, he would get longer beaks, or he would get undesired traits, right? And these are spotty coats, smaller feet, fluffier feathers, lighter feathers, different colors. And he was always like, what the hell? Why does this happen? And he theorizes some things. But if you are going, does anyone know who later figured that out? If your answer is anyone other than Mendel, you're wrong, because it's Mendel. Mendel figured this out, the Punnett square guy, and he figured this out right down the road in Europe, or right around the same time as Darwin, and they never actually met or interacted that I read about, which is pretty interesting, because they both came out with the same thing. It was a hot topic back in the day, where animals come from. All right, so now, artificial selection theories. This one is the pet wolf or the Pinocchio hypothesis. And this is the idea that ancient peoples adopted wolf pups. Now, people think this is the most common. People. Selecting for certain traits, and you're selecting for less aggression. Makes sense, right? And then you would praise those with those traits, and you'd kill the ones that didn't. A lot of this involves weeding out the bad. The problem. Wolf pups grow up to be wild wolves. You can't just pull a wolf out of the wild and be like, look at this dog, and use clicker training. Doesn't work that way. Though you do use clicker training to train wolves. But anyway, it's possible to tame wolves, however. You can use them in circuses, which I completely don't recommend. And you can tame wolves to be on camera. You can tame wolves to, just to be around them. You can, but that is genetically still a wild animal, and it requires constant training. Not a lot of people have wolves, and it's illegal to have them for a very specific reason. I also think, they're very threatened. So it's. I don't necessarily think this was the MO of ancient people who were going out and be like, I want to adopt that thing today. And I'm sure little kids picked up lizards, they picked up little rodents and stuff and put them in some kind of enclosure, like a little terrarium they made out of clay or something, or pottery wasn't around here yet, but just something. Like they played with animals. They wouldn't have thought maybe adopting a puppy would be a great idea. But I'm sure other smart people in the group were like, yeah, don't do that. But later on, as these theories were going on, I think maybe this was probably what was going on too. Once we kind of figured out the patterns. I talked with Clay Newcomb of Meat Eater, or I guess Bear Grease was his podcast. He has a cool story about picking up a coyote pup too, which are technically natural dogs that descend from wolves as well. Wolves are still unpredictable. There's no domestic biology. A lot of tangents today. Let's ask a question though. How long does it take to make a dog? And the Siberian fox experiment kind of gets at this. Dmitry Belyaev was a Soviet geneticist. There you go. Was asked to help breed farmed silver foxes, which are Vulpes vulpes, to be less aggressive. Hold up. Vulpes is the genus of foxes. Foxes are not related to dogs. In fact, foxes and wolves are less related to each other than you are to a chimpanzee. Just throwing that out there. He was asked to help breed silver foxes to be less aggressive, and he only bred docile foxes with docile foxes. He bred aggressive foxes as a control, because with science, you want to breed a control just to compare. What happened, no one expected, and this would have made Darwin dance in his grave. Within 20 generations of controlled breeding, the foxes changed. They got cuter, smaller, they began to bark. They had spotted, multicolored coats. Their ears went floppy. Their tails curled and wagged, and they looked more juvenile into adulthood. We're still recording? Yeah. The control group were extremely aggressive, and he called these dragons, or in Russian, dragons. They had extremely high adrenaline levels, and I think that's how you say dragon. And adrenal and aggression DNA coding has something to do with this. I don't know. That gets into some very dark waters if you go down that rabbit hole, but that's why this is like a controversial study. Also, the foxes were in just terrible cages for a long time. Not great either. But it's interesting. And this tells us, Darwin would have been like, oh, with a light bulb moment. Let me go back, though. This tells us, either way, as unethical as it is, or, there's different people complain that he didn't do the process as well as he should have, which biases the data or makes the data biased. Either way, it does show us that you can change an animal within a few generations of breeding to be a little more different, irrelevant. The story of dogs and humans, right? About 200,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans leave Africa and start to radiate around the world. And 100,000 years ago, behaviorally modern humans kind of come out, and they slowly become what we are today. I subscribe to out of Africa. I think it makes the most sense. Think of Africa as like a melting pot of humanity, and eventually that pot boils, and people leave Africa. Homo erectus started it. Anatomically moderns did AMH, and then BMH did it later. And we eventually just replaced the other humans that were there. Anyway, we settled the world. Human hunter-gatherers arrive, right? And humans are efficient, intelligent, and a very adaptable species. I literally have adapted to this place. Modern society is wild. Humans got there by being adaptable. We would have ran into wolves often. That point was irrelevant. We had to live in caves or structures to hide from cats and bears and lions and wolves. Cats are lions. And we would have had to do this, humans are kind of, back then could have slept a few hours and then woke up and done stuff. But for the most part, we don't have night vision. We're going to be up mostly during the day. We had to compete with wolves who also hunt during the day. They also hunt at night, but mostly during the day. And there would have been close contact and often contact, or contact often. Protodogs, let's say this, one day after the hunt, a wolf follows you home. It begins to scavenge outside your camp. And then maybe you raise one of the pups one day and you decide, okay, these things aren't going to hurt us. They've been around us for thousands of years. Let's pick one up and try to raise it. Or the pups get socialized around you, right? Instead of picking them up and adopting them, the pups are just used to being around you. The mom feels safe enough to bring the wolf pups around you. That might have happened too. And this is humans meeting Neanderthals about 50,000 years ago in this painting. And I don't think that dogs were around when Neanderthals were around. Neanderthals, when it go extinct, they kind of dissolved into our species, or we had sex with them so often that and also made, check out Stefan's video, but like some of them would have been mules, some of them would have been fertile, that could have anyway, we didn't wipe them out. They just genetically disappeared. Like they've just become part of us. We are part Neanderthal. It was just way more humans that came in and overtook the population. But at this time, there might have been wolves in the background, just scavenging around, just starting this process. It could have been happening as soon as we got to Eurasia, but dogs don't appear until about 20,000 years ago, so all this is just speculation on my end. There's also a book called The Invaders that talks about how humans and dogs might have actually driven the extinction of Neanderthals. Technically, dogs didn't exist at that point. They could have. There's no evidence for it yet. I think they even suggest in the book that might not be the case. But it's fun to think about. So now dogs become man's best friend. Wolves and humans have a similar social system. Been over this. Monogamy and behavioral rearing of our children. These protodogs or wolves may have realized this quickly. Wow, we can rely on these guys for food. We don't have to hunt anymore. It's a good trade-off. Nothing wants to mess with the wolf, and nothing wants to mess with a human. They protect us, and they help us hunt. We begin selectively breeding their pups, right? And we start killing the dragons, praising the dogs. It can be debated, are dogs our greatest invention? I would say stone tools are. Some people might say agriculture. Some people might say Netflix. I would agree. But I think dogs are a wonderful just tool humans have. I think we would have been just fine without them. I think so. But it is neat. The agriculture in the world doesn't appear until we have dogs. I don't think those are correlated in any way. Correlation doesn't equal causation. But once we can be sedentary in one spot and not have to keep being mobile, we have dogs to protect us and also help us hunt. So, possibly. Anyway, our greatest invention? I don't know. It's a biotechnology. Dr. Angela Perry calls it this, I think in her dissertation, and it's now a paper she has in a book. It's also sitting right there. Dogs are like a flesh robot. Like, they literally are a robot that you can train and program to do things. And you don't even have to use coding. You just feed it. Crazy. They help us hunt. They protect us. This is a military dog. Now, people always get upset with me when I share military dog stuff on my page. Well, suck it up, because dogs are used in the military. They are used as police dogs. I can't stop that myself, but it is an aspect of the human-dog relationship that I do have to cover sometimes. So I'm sorry. But this dog here has an infrared camera on its back. Some dogs get cochlear implants so they can understand commands from far. And they also get titanium teeth in some cases to help, attack people or hold enemies down and not get their teeth ripped out. It's titanium. It's crazy. Or break their teeth, right? They also get walkie-talkies. They can hold ammo. They can do all kinds of things. And dogs, throughout history, have been in warfare. It would be a travesty to not talk about that, because it's a huge part of dog history. Anyway, now we make Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics makes this robot that's like a walking dog. It literally looks like one. I guess you can say it's kind of a horse. They made it to help the military, to help climb mountains and carry packs and things. But it's essentially a dog. We used dogs for that, too, in the past. And you can't beat a dog. Like, it's just, a dog is infinitely going to be a more superior technology than whatever that thing is on the side. And here, like in coastal Georgia, 7,000 years ago, where I'm sitting, this scene probably happened. Like a mother and her daughter collecting shellfish on the beach, putting it on a pack on a dog. They didn't have llamas. Were in South America. They didn't have any other domestic animals besides the dog and the turkey and the guinea pig in the Americas. And I guess the Muscovy duck and I guess other little things too. But like essentially just for the big animals, dogs, turkeys, and wolves. Or dogs, turkeys, and llamas. Well, you don't have llamas up here. You put all your stuff on a dog. You have them haul things for you. It's a backpack. They can also carry water for themselves. They can carry stone tools when you're at a quarry, you want to bring it back. Infinite possibilities, right? And that happened here in Georgia. It could have happened all around the world. Here is me and Strider getting attacked by cave hyenas. Now, dogs help flush animals out of caves. Once hyenas go extinct, humans start entering the Americas. I forget who did that study, but cave hyenas are a big, threatening animal. Hyenas used to be all over Europe, too, and Eurasia, and Asia. I think they're still live in, like, the Middle East, but big ones, cave hyenas. They're very threatening. They can kill you, and they have eaten people. There's hyena feces with human hair in it. I believe in, can't remember, somewhere in Eurasia. But yeah, so they would have helped flush these animals out. Cave bears as well, cave lions. They're also not around anymore. I think climate really drastically made all the megafauna die out, but this certainly didn't help their perpetuation of the species. Again, a biotechnology. You are literally an ape that uses a lever device to hunt things. You make inventions to hunt. And you also have a wolf that follows this ape. They're both very talkative. And if you were an alien coming to this planet and saw this, it's horrifying, right? No other animal teams up this way. I guess a remora fish on a manta ray, like, they kind of do that. But nothing teams up like a human and a wolf that just spear it, the wolf chases it, drags it down, rips it to shreds, you cut it up, and then you literally take a stick and make it combust into a fire, and you cook it on there. It's insanity. Humans and wolves are awesome. Now, the scientific evidence for dogs doesn't necessarily appear, in my opinion, fully until about 20,000 years ago. We first see the genetic signatures for dogs, and that is according to Dr. Perry's 2021 paper with several other researchers. Dogs probably came about then, or actually this was a 2019 paper, but anyway, can't remember. It's Dr. Perry wrote it. And there's also that dogs came from East Asia, like a Siberia area. That's where this DNA allocates to. So the dogs that were up there went back towards Europe and down towards Southern Asia. Other ones went across the straits into the Americas. And that all radiates from Siberia. And the glaciation in the area would have trapped humans and wolves up there. They couldn't really go out of it. There would have been this big radius up there, but for the most part stayed near it. In the same general area, wolves and humans had to adapt to be around each other, according to all those theories, likely. And that's what happened, I think. Currently, that's where I stand. Protodogs remains, though, have been found all over Europe and Asia. There's one dating back 30,000 years and one dating 36,000 years ago in Siberia. There's a young one, I think 33,000 years old in Belgium, others in the Altai Mountains, and one in Germany. It's debated, though. You can see the wolf skull, the dog skull on the table there. A wolf skull, which is Exhibit A here, and a dog skull is Exhibit B. It's the same species. Dogs are a subspecies, right? And they get a more sloped forehead because their brain is like a little more pushed in there, and it shrinks. Wolf skulls are longer. They're more elongated. They're more robust, I would say. I guess you could say they're grasshopper. They're different, let's say that. And at this time, 36,000 years ago, evolution on Earth doesn't work like it does in Kanto or Johto or anywhere in Pokemon, right? You can't just give something a Thunderstone and evolve it. I guess in Growlithe's case, you give it a Firestone. Doesn't work like that. It does not happen overnight. So wolf skulls that look like that, there's a gradual trend of them looking more like dogs. When does that start? No idea to tell. So all you can do is grab the skulls and compare them to other ones, but then there's dogs that are hybrids. And there's dogs like my German Shepherd that's a lot bigger than a Pomeranian. It's hard to tell. So that's why I think the genetic evidence is the best one to go with right now at 20,000 years ago. But I have no doubts it was going on earlier than that. There's just no way to tell until you get that genetic signature. Yeah, I'll keep going. So tie this back into anthropology, because I usually give this lecture for Anthropology Day or to an anthropological class. Physical anthropology, or biological anthropology in dogs, canceled. Humans and dogs, when they interact with each other, get the hormone oxytocin that releases. It's a chemical. That is the same chemical that releases when a mother breastfeeds her child. It's the same chemical you get when you're in love with somebody. Humans and dogs mutually release this chemical when they interact with each other. I can just look at my dog and it goes off in my head. It physically bonds you to your dog. It's insane. There's also zoonotic diseases that transfer between dogs and people. Leptospirosis, worms, fleas, ticks, all that stuff can transfer between people. And obviously smallpox and things like that came about from humans giving it to pigs and pigs it gestating in there and coming back to us and with a vengeance. Dogs might have had diseases too, or wolves. Don't know. Can't see that archaeologically. You can only really see tuberculosis. And if you got your head bashed in. I don't know. Who's to say? There's also a theory by Stu Fidel that possibly humans and dogs entering the Americas led to a trophic cascade of dogs bringing a new disease into say a wolf. Sorry. Let's say a wolf attacks your dog at night, like an early Paleo-Indian dog, right? Attacks the dog. That dog had a disease from the old world that it brought over. Now that wolf has that disease. It bites another animal, or it bites a mammoth, or it bites something, or a bison. Those diseases are going to spread. And if it's a foreign disease, let's say distemper, or let's say it's a disease like rabies, it goes around like wildfire. That could lead to a lot of animals dying. However, most animals would die then, not just the megafauna. So I think it doesn't really hold that much weight. But definitely humans and dogs coming through the country, or through the continent, doesn't bode well for other animals, especially prey species. And then there's the cooperative eye hypothesis. This is the idea that humans and dogs have white sclera in their eyes, and this is why we have it. It's for communication. I can look around and you can see the whites of my eyes, which makes the pupils and the iris more expressive. If they look somewhere, you can point. You can show emotion or fear. Dogs have the same thing. Chimps slightly have it. Gorillas slightly have it. The apes slightly have it. Other animals kind of have it, but it is the most exaggerated in Canis lupus familiaris. They can literally communicate with you and read your emotions with their eyes, and we can read theirs. Cool. Zork. Bonn-Oberkassel, Germany, is the oldest dog burial currently that I know of. And that's 14,000 years before the present in Germany. It's a puppy that had canine distemper. And it looks like they healed the puppy, they cared for it, and it got back to health. But then it died again, it died prematurely. It didn't live to adulthood. And they buried it. And it's buried with 2 people. Pretty significant. There's also, it shows you that they were caring for dogs. Why do you spend calories caring for an animal when you could just spend it on yourself? That shows compassion, and it shows humanity. I think that's really cool. Ain Malacha in Israel, or let's say, the Levant, 12,000 years ago, before the present, right? And this is a woman, middle-aged, buried with her puppy. I don't think it means the puppy died at the same time as her. I think it means the puppy was killed at the same time as her. Or maybe the puppy died and the woman killed herself. I don't know. But they're together. They're buried together, presumably to be together for eternity. And that is in the Epipaleolithic in the Levant with the Natufian culture, where they are the first people to kind of sit down and start domesticating and sitting in one place and start, farming a lot more. I think their claim to fame is that they were the first people to genuinely sit down in one space, because that area is a very bountiful area. That's why it's pretty fought over. It's a little more desert now, but anyway. Coster site, Illinois, 10,000 years before the present, right? And this is in Illinois. It's the earliest dog burial in the Americas that we know of, and this is where we're getting all that genetic tracing back with this, with Dr. Perry's studies. Really cool dog. Really cool site. Linguistics. Is it recording? Yeah. We get semiotics, right? You can point and you can gesture for your dog. I can tell him place. Place. That's language. That's linguistics. Lay down. I commanded an animal to do something. Crazy. Objectively. You can't command a llama to do that in the wild until you domesticate it. You can't tell a bear to do that when it comes up on you in Yellowstone. Verbal commands, right? I just did that. Commands, talking, training, language. In a book I read by Eduardo Cohn, it's called How Forests Think, and it's about the ontology of human thought. And like, we can't be good anthropologists just studying culture. You have to understand the ontology of a people, how they view the world. And in this culture in South America, I can't remember exactly what it was. He calls it, well, first they spray ayahuasca into the dog's snout, like in this picture. And they speak to the dog and tell it, and they train it things and speak to it like a human in what he calls motherese, which is like that kind of talk to the dog. And it's interesting. We talk to our dog like that all the time. I talk to my dog. It's absurd. Like, I talk to my dog by myself all day when I'm at home. And if someone saw that, I'd be judged harshly because it's very weird. But people do this, and we talk to our children like this. We talk to our dog. We treat our dogs like they are people. They are a very human species to me. Neat. I don't think motherese is a great word for this, but there's got to be another word. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool stuff. Now, mythology. This is my favorite part about all this. I'm going to give you a second. What do all these have in common? Do you know, Strider? Sorry. What these have in common, yes, they are all black, but also they all have to do with death. Fenrir, in some versions, he swallows the sun during Ragnarok, but other versions say it's his children. His children wolves swallow the sun and the moon or something. I can't remember. Either way, something doesn't bode well in Ragnarok, and it has to do with the Canid. Someone is going to correct me on that in the comments. I got lit up on TikTok for saying that wrong. Anyway, you know what I mean. Xolat is how you say that in Aztec mythology. He's a dog god. In Aztec mythology, when your dog dies, it waits for you on the riverbanks of the 9 lands of the dead. And it waits for you. When you die, it ferries you across that river, helps you swim across it, and then it guides you through the 9 lands of the dead, so you don't have to go alone. Awesome. Now, the Aztecs did some questionable stuff, but that one I don't question as being cool. I mean, I can't judge the Aztecs for doing that. I can judge them for rolling, children's heads down the stairs, but, it objectively, like, human cultures do crazy stuff. We also stoned people in Europe for a long time. What can you do? Pretty story. And Cerberus, Hades' dog, he guards the river Styx to make people not come back, or not leave the underworld. Cool. In Huron mythology, similarly, a dog guards the river to the spirit world, and only those who don't fear it can pass through onto the spirit world. Really cool. And then in Seneca, Iroquoian mythology here in the eastern United States, dogs during creation had the chance to be human, but due to their promiscuous and uncleanly behavior, they got denied. They got denied access to humanity. So humans took pity on them because they don't belong in the animal kingdom. They're not like other animals. We adopted them, and dogs are our wards. They're ours to care for, and they care for us. Also, they have a theory that, or a mythology, or a belief that the more you love a dog, the more magic and power you can get, and that's called orenda. It's like a magic, and loving your dog can give you great power, and if you abuse that dog, you get bad energy. I think that's really cool too. There's tons of others, like Mixtec, Olmec. They have their own dog stuff too. Mongols, like Mongolian reindeer herding cultures, believe they descend from wolves. So dogs and wolves, dogs and people descend from wolves. They share kinship. It's called totemism. You share kinship with an animal. And when dogs die, they're reincarnated as humans. When humans die, they're reincarnated as dogs. And dogs aren't given names, I believe. Is that society? And maybe that's not, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I do know in Arctic, I believe it's not Tlingit, it is the Inuk cultures here. Dogs can't eat certain animal bones. They can't chew on moose bones. They can't chew on reindeer bones because it would offend them. It would offend their souls. You also can't touch animal, or I forget exactly how it is. You can't touch their meat. I can't remember. And dogs can't, and it would offend them. So they can eat fish, but they can't eat whale bones. They can't eat seal bones. It would offend those creatures because dogs are traitors to the animal kingdom. I forget exactly what it is, but most dogs were left outside, chained up as working dogs. All day, every day, 24/7. They survived just fine. But one dog was allowed to live in the house, in the home, as a domestic animal, and that one was given a name. And in that society, when you give something a name, it earns a soul. Dogs are very cross-culturally fascinating to us. They all have to do with death. Now, let's talk about our boy Anubis. Anubis is an amalgamation of canids. I did a whole video on this. I think it's on Dig It with Raven's channel. Yep, it's on Dig It with. You can check it out. I'll link to it. Anubis is an amalgamation of canids. People thought he was a jackal, thought he was a dog, thought he was a wolf. Well, it turns out the African golden jackal is actually a wolf genetically. So I think he's a wolf dog thing. Anyway, he represents canids. He is the oldest Egyptian god. He is. And before Islam, before Buddhism, before Christianity, before Judaism, people were worshiping dogs in a way, or believed dogs had something to do with the afterlife. So dog is my shepherd. Just be dyslexic and change it around. Anubis waits for you, and when you get to the underworld, he will take your heart out, and he puts it on a scale and tests it against the feather of Ma'at, and he wants to see if your heart is as light or less, or lighter than a feather. And if it is, you can pass with him and go to the underworld to meet Osiris and Ra. However, Osiris is the god of the dead. Anubis is the god, Osiris is the god of death. Anubis is the god of the dead. He's the only Egyptian god who's friendly with us. He likes us. We like him. Anubis is our friend. Go figure, he's a dog. What's up? And I personally think, on a sad note, like, our dogs teach us, like, compassion and empathy and, like, love. Like, they love us unconditionally. And if we learn that from our dogs and we treat our dogs and treat other people that way, you're able to pass this canid god's test. It's beautiful in a way. Like, I think that's awesome. Yeah, he also invented mummification. He was the first to mummify. I believe it's Osiris, when he put all his body parts back together. He got his dick cut off. I believe so. Yes. Who knows? It all goes back. Point being, he's the oldest, and he's associated with death, and people like him. And yeah, I think it's because dogs, or why is all this? I don't know. This is a dissertation if someone wants to work on it. My leading opinion is that dogs like to scavenge, and therefore they like to eat dead stuff. Wolves like to scavenge. Jackals like to scavenge. Coyotes like to scavenge human tombs and dead things and graveyards and stuff. So it might be something with that, but it also, and that's in the associated with death way, but in associated with the afterlife, people want to be with their dogs. We love them. You get that bond, chemical bond with them. I think they are quite religious and mythological to us because of that. They're not human. They're not animal. They are dog, is how I would describe that. In culture, how much time do I got? Yeah, I got plenty. Culture. No. Like I told you, like in Arctic societies here in the Americas and in Greenland, I believe too, women were the ones who raised dogs, not men. They raised the dogs to the point where they could then go to be hunting dogs or go be sled dogs. That it was a woman's task to care for them, or at least they chose that task on their own. I don't recall how the text says it, but it was like early like studies of them, right? So it could be wrong. I don't know, but I believe according to the indigenous peoples I have consulted with, that is the case. And in the plains too, women cared for the dogs, and they also used the travois here, which is essentially a sled that you strap to a dog harness and it pulls things. Because in the Americas, before they had horses, when they were brought back by the Spanish, horses evolved and died in North America in the Pleistocene. They had the dog. And then they had the llama in South America, but the llama's not that strong. Could just carry a few little packs. It can't pull things. But yeah, like we were using them for that. So we assume in ancient times, in the old world too, we were doing this too. And in Africa, because and the dingoes in Australia as well. That's the whole thing. The dingo is a wild dog. It's a domestic dog brought to Australia by migrating humans, and it went back to being feral. Canis lupus dingo is that one's name. Really cool. And it also helped start the extinction of the Tasmanian tiger, or the Tasmanian wolf, otherwise known as the thylacine, because you also bring this apex predator onto the continent that has never seen it before, and all the prey species that live there are like, what is this thing? So they got thylacines and dingoes hunting them. The thylacines population is going to go away because the dingoes replace them in their niche. And then when Europeans get there in the Yeah, Europeans get there in the 1700s, and they eradicate the shit out of the thylacine as well because they're eating their sheep. So it was set in motion by the dingo, though. At least I think. I'm on a side tangent. Anyway, we can use dogs to help us hunt, right? All right, I was saying here, that was a weird click. The Plains tribes used dogs for the travois, and that was a woman's task to train them for that. And we know this because of in the Hadasta culture, a Buffalo Bird woman like writes about this, and she told it, and there's like a whole thing of how she makes it and all that stuff. It's really cool. Dogs help us hunt. They tree animals. They can run animals up a tree. Then we shoot it with a bow or an atlatl. The atlatl is a lot older. The bow is very new. We use them in war, like at the opening scene of Gladiator. He has a German Shepherd somehow, but they're using dogs in war. The Greeks did this. The Macedonians, the Romans, the Spanish brought their dogs over to the Americas and did a lot of questionable shit with them. But we use dogs for warfare all the time. They're a tool. Now, I'm going to end with this. At a certain point, we got that von Oberkassel dog in 14,000 years before the present in Germany. At some point, humans decide that not only are we human, but this animal that is very human to us, they extend their humanity to it, and they see themselves in it, and they bury it with dignity, and give it trinkets, and they give it ochre on its burial. They don't do that with other animals that we know of. Maybe they revered some bird they knew, but like when we get dogs, we have this idea of like, whoa, we are human, but so is this thing. What does it mean to be human? I don't know. And they didn't know either. They had probably theories, but what we do know is that they cared for these animals and they buried them. No, whether they loved them or like the cultural differences, maybe they like kicked them all the time and hated them. But either way, they bury it with dignity and they bury it with intention, and therefore it has humanity. I think that's also a gorgeous thought. And this is in Tori's mind, this is Upper Paleolithic Moravia, so like the Czech Republic area. Conclusion, I'm not sure which domestication theory is correct. It could be a mix of all of them. It could be one of them and then the rest of them. I don't know. I just think they're scavenging camps, and people realize this is something that's very beneficial for both of us. What we do know is all dogs live to serve humans in a way. And it sounds bad, but they do. They love to serve us. They love to be of use to us. Like, it's cool. My dog wants nothing more than to work. It's awesome. They've been bred to do this. Dogs and wolves can still interbreed. Dogs, wolves, coyotes, and jackals can all interbreed. They're the same species. I personally think that coyotes are just a natural dog. They're a smaller version of a wolf that scavenges, but also can hunt little things on its own. And they're just a natural, very social pack of animals that did its own thing in the Americas. It's very cool. Anyway, that's another thing. Wolves are still around, and it's because they share a common ancestor. And if they don't, if it's not the common ancestor thing, and dogs are gray wolves, then all it means is that dogs are an ecological niche of wolves. They are a niche of the same species that evolved, or that became very good at scavenging human camps. So they are a wolf that's niche is living with people. Your dog can live with you in the forest. Your dog can live with you on the Polynesian rafts going to Rapa Nui. Your dog can live with, or Hawaii at least. Your dog can live with you in the Arctic, and your dog can live with you in a small Soho apartment in Manhattan, and it will love it. It's bred to adapt to human life and live in human society. It's really cool. There's also really bad stuff that happens with that too, like dogs being chained up in those commercials. Like, if you do that, unfollow me. The dog is a wolf that's adapted to human life. So for 30,000 years or more, dogs have been, I would say 20,000 years or more, let's say, dogs have been domestic animals, possibly upwards of 30. They are, I said this earlier, dogs are my favorite creature on the planet. They're amazing. They are not... Like, it just, I will never know, like, why people think they have to do with death. But I do know that, like, if I die, I mean, when I do, I don't care what else happens. I would just love to see my dog again. And I believe people back then wanted that too. Or Anubis, like, who loves you unconditionally? Your dog. So therefore, when you meet Anubis, you feel happy. I don't know what else to say. But again, dogs are not human. Dogs are not animal. Dogs are dog. and I think that's awesome. All right, this one didn't cut off, so stop complaining.